In the year 2287, humanity had conquered the solar system, but it had not conquered the void. The void was still king, and the price of defying it was paid with every single breath. On Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, and in the spinning habitats of the belt, life was possible for one reason and one reason only: the Earth-based corporation, AuraGen. They held the patents, the technology, and the absolute monopoly on atmospheric generation. Air was not a right, it was a product, metered and sold like water in the deserts of old Earth. And the cost of that product was obedience. Elias Thorne was a good company man. He believed in the system because he had seen what happened without it. His parents had been belters, pioneers who had gambled on a non-sanctioned habitat with a rival, cheaper life support system. Elias was 10 when he watched the habitat's pressure alarms turn from yellow to red, and listened to the panicked, fading whispers of his parents over a faulty comm link. He had been a ward of the corporation ever since, raised in the structured, safe, and sterile world of AuraGen's Mars colony. He believed in their control because he knew the alternative was chaos and the cold, silent vacuum. His life now, as a level 3 atmospheric technician in the Olympus Mons colony, was one of quiet, meticulous order. His small habitat was clean, his schedule was predictable, and his job was vital. He maintained the delicate balance of the air he and a million other colonists breathed. He found comfort in the soft hiss of the recyclers and the faint, metallic tang of the air. It was the taste of survival. It was the taste of order. Log 0800 Standard. Pressure anomaly detected again in decommissioned Sector 7 Delta. A positive fluctuation of 0.023%. Fluctuation is holding steady. This is the 4th consecutive day. Thorne, it's Lynn. We've been over this. It's a sensor ghost. Sector 7 has been sealed for 50 years since the mine collapsed. The geological stress probably. With respect, Supervisor, a ghost doesn't repeat with this kind of regularity and precision. And I'm getting trace readings of unknown organic compounds in the adjoining filter systems. I think I should check the primary seals in person. Fine. If it will get you back to your actual duties, go look at your ghost. But any overtime is on your own time, chit. And standard liability waiver applies. If you get buried in that old tomb, AuraGen isn't responsible. Lynn out. Elias's professional curiosity, a quality that made him an excellent technician but a frustrating subordinate, wouldn't let it go. An unknown organic compound, however small, was a contamination risk. His job was to ensure the purity of the air. He suited up and took a maintenance transport to the silent, dust-choked entrance of Sector 7 Delta. The massive blast door was sealed, a forgotten gateway to a place no one had entered in half a century. A faded sign above it read, structurally unsound. No entry. By order of the prefect. Using his master credentials, he overrode the lock. The air beyond was cold, still, and thin. He followed the pressure readings on his handheld scanner down a long, dark tunnel, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The tunnel was a graveyard of old technology, abandoned mining equipment draped in 50 years of red dust. The pressure readings grew stronger as he approached the site of the main collapse, a wall of red rock and twisted, mangled metal. But the source wasn't the tunnel itself, it was seeping through the rock. He noticed a small fissure, barely wide enough for a man to squeeze through, half hidden behind a fallen support beam. A faint, almost imperceptible golden light seemed to pulse from within. Driven now by more than just curiosity, he pushed aside debris and squeezed through the opening. He emerged into a vast, natural cavern, a place untouched by man, and his breath caught in his throat. The entire cavern was alive. The walls were covered in a thick, rust-colored, lichen-like moss that pulsed with a soft, internal, golden light. It was beautiful, alien, and utterly impossible. He raised his atmospheric scanner, expecting the thin, toxic air of Mars. The readings that came back made his heart stop. Nitrogen, 78%. Oxygen, 21%. Argon and trace elements, 1%. It was Earth normal. It was perfect air. He looked from his scanner to the gently glowing moss and back again, his mind struggling to comprehend the miracle before him. The lichen was consuming the carbon dioxide from the thin Martian atmosphere seeping into the cavern and was exhaling a perfectly balanced, breathable atmosphere. For the first time in his life, Elias Thorne breathed air that wasn't manufactured. It was clean. It was pure. It had no metallic tang. It was the air of a living world. His mind raced. This wasn't just a biological curiosity. This was a revolution in Iraq. This could end the colony's dependence, end AuraGen's iron-fisted control. It was a gift to humanity. He took samples of the lichen, his hands shaking with the enormity of his discovery. He rushed back to his small lab, his heart pounding with a naive, scientific joy. He saw the future in his mind, new, open-air cities on Mars, children playing under a thickened, breathable sky. He saw himself presenting the findings to the AuraGen board, a hero who had given humanity back its freedom. Believing he was about to give the greatest gift imaginable, he compiled his report, attached the impossible data and the organic analysis, and sent it up the chain of command, flagging it for the highest levels of the Interplanetary Science Division. He had just signed his own death warrant. Half a solar system away, on Earth, the report appeared on a secure terminal. The office was sleek, minimalist, with a view of a reclaimed, pristine Lake Michigan. The woman reading the report was Commander Eva Rostova, head of special security for AuraGen. Her face, usually a mask of calm control, tightened as she absorbed the data. She saw the same facts as Elias, but she saw a different future. She saw colonial declarations of independence. She saw trade wars over the rights to the lichen. She saw Earth's carefully balanced political and economic power, built on the singular resource of air, shattering into 1,000 warring pieces. She saw chaos, bloodshed, and the end of the order she had dedicated her life to upholding. Activate Protocol 7. Subject is Elias Thorne, Level 3 Technician, Olympus Mons Colony. The discovery is to be classified Level 10, Existential Threat. Send in the first contact containment team. I want the research, the samples, and the source sterilized. And I want Thorne. Silent acquisition. No witnesses. This heresy dies before it can draw its first breath. Back on Mars, the response came 3 hours after his report was filed. It wasn't a message of congratulations. It was the sound of his laboratory door being sealed from the outside. A red light flashed on his console, quarantine protocol engaged. Await assistance. Elias, into his comm, hello. This is Thorne in Lab 4. My door has been sealed. There must be a mistake. Containment. Not a science team. The word chilled him to the bone. He looked at the security feed on his monitor and saw them approaching, 5 figures in black, armored suits, their gear not for gathering samples, but for sanitation. And for suppression. He frantically tried to delete his research from the central server, but his access was denied. His life's greatest discovery had been stolen from him in an instant. He heard the whine of a plasma torch begin to cut through his door. He had seconds. He grabbed his personal data core, the one containing his original, off-network scan data, and looked wildly around his lab. There was a small emergency maintenance vent behind a coolant panel, a duct barely large enough for a man. As the containment team breached his lab door, he scrambled into the darkness of the vent. He crawled through the dusty, forgotten guts of the station, emerging into a lower-level maintenance corridor. A moment later, the entire colony's alert system blared to life, his own face flashing across every public view screen. Warning. Rogue technician Elias Thorne has initiated a deliberate act of industrial sabotage against the colony's primary life support. He is considered armed and dangerous. A full colony lockdown is in effect. His world had been turned upside down. The system he had dedicated his life to, the order he cherished, had just declared him a terrorist to cover up a miracle. He was alone. He was a heretic. And he was being hunted. He clutched the small data core in his hand, the last remnant of the truth, and ran. Elias Thorne was a ghost in the machine he had spent his life maintaining. With his face plastered across every public view screen under the label, terrorist, he was now the most famous, and most hunted, man on Mars. He moved through the scarab's forgotten pathways, the cavernous maintenance tunnels, the humming geothermal transfer pipes, the silent, dust-choked ventilation shafts. He was a technician, the schematics of these hidden routes were as familiar to him as the back of his own hand. For the first time, his humble, overlooked knowledge was more valuable than any corporate credential. He found a temporary hiding place in a refuse processing hub, the stench of industrial waste a welcome mask for his own scent. On a small, grimy public view screen, he watched the official AuraGen news feed. He saw a polished, official-looking spokesperson explaining how the deranged technician Thorne had attempted to introduce a foreign biological agent into the primary air scrubbers, an act of terrorism that had been narrowly averted. They were reporting minor air quality dips in several sectors, blaming it on his sabotage, a manufactured crisis to sell their lie. They weren't just hunting him, they were methodically assassinating the truth. He knew he couldn't hide forever. He had to get off-world. But the colony was a locked box. Every transport, every shuttle, every orbital lifter would be under the highest security. He needed a way out that wasn't on any official manifest. And for that, he needed to go to the one place where rules were merely suggestions, the Port District. That made Corbin look up. His eyes were like chips of iron, cold and hard. He scanned Elias from head to toe, taking in the cheap jacket and the desperate, haunted look on his face. Corbin, you're the terrorist tech from the news feeds. You've got guts, I'll give you that. Or you're an idiot. What makes you think I wouldn't turn you in for the bounty? The Port District was a world away from the sterile, ordered tunnels of the main colony. It was a chaotic, grimy, vibrant ecosystem of independent haulers, asteroid miners, and fringe dwellers who lived and died by their own code. Using the last of his personal credits on a burner comm chip and a hooded, featureless jacket, Elias melted into the crowds. He listened, piecing together whispers and rumors, until one name kept repeating itself with a mixture of fear and respect, Corbin. An independent hauler, a veteran of the bloody asteroid belt skirmishes against AuraGen expansion, and a man who, for the right price, would fly a ship into a star if the cargo was valuable enough. Elias found him in a dimly lit bar called The Broken Seal, hunched over a flickering table, his face illuminated by the light of a datapad. Corbin was a broad, scarred man whose presence seemed to suck the air out of his immediate vicinity. Because the bounty they're offering is nothing compared to what this information is worth to the outer colonies. He pushed his personal data core across the sticky table. Everything you need to know is on there. Corbin snorted, but his curiosity got the better of him. He picked up the core, plugged it into his heavily modified datapad, and began to scan the contents. Elias watched as the big man's expression shifted from cynical disbelief, to grudging interest, to wide-eyed, avaricious shock. Corbin saw the chemical breakdowns, the cellular structure, the impossible oxygen production rates. He wasn't just looking at data, he was looking at the end of Earth's dominion over the solar system. He leaned back, a slow, dangerous grin spreading across his face. Corbin, well, I'll be damned. The little heretic is telling the truth. He looked at Elias, his iron chip eyes now gleaming with a new light. This isn't just a payday. This is revenge. My ship, the Nomad, is in Hangar Bay 12. But the whole port is crawling with AuraGen enforcers. We'll never just walk on board. Elias, so how do we get out? AuraGen loves order. They love protocols. The best way to beat them is with a little bit of chaos. The plan was simple and suicidal. Corbin, using his network of disgruntled port workers, would trigger a cascade failure in the magnetic launch catapults at the main passenger terminal on the far side of the port. The resulting power surge and lockdown would be logged as a major industrial accident, drawing the bulk of Rostova's security forces away from the independent hangars. As the diversion sent the port district into chaos, Elias sprinted across the cold, windswept tarmac of the landing field. He could see the Nomad, a battered, ugly, but powerfully built freighter, its ramp already lowering. He was 50 meters away when a new set of floodlights snapped on, pinning him in their glare. Standing there, flanked by a squad of her elite, black-clad guards. Elias knew that was a lie. He broke into a desperate, final sprint towards the ramp. Blaster fire stitched the ground around his feet. From the cockpit of the Nomad, Corbin unleashed the ship's dorsal cannons, not aiming to kill, but providing a wall of suppressive fire that forced Rostova and her team to take cover. Elias scrambled up the ramp, diving into the ship's hold just as a plasma bolt struck the ramp's hydraulics, causing it to slam shut with a shower of sparks. The Nomad roared to life, its powerful engines kicking up a storm of red dust as it ascended, shaking off the Enforcer's fire. They were away. They were free of the colony. Elias looked out the viewport at the receding red marble of Mars and felt a surge of triumph. Elias rushed to the cockpit. On the main screen, a ship was detaching from the primary AuraGen orbital station. It was a sleek, black, manta-ray-shaped vessel, an inexorable-class patrol cutter, the fastest ship in the corporate fleet. It altered its course and began to burn hard, directly towards them. Elias, who is that? Corbin, that's Rostova's personal flagship. She's not giving up. We've just escaped the cage, kid. Now the real hunt begins. The chase was a brutal, elegant dance of predator and prey in the black ballroom of space. Commander Rostova's patrol cutter, the Inexorable, was a blade of a ship, fast and precise. She was relentless, anticipating Corbin's moves, using her superior speed to cut off his escape vectors toward the asteroid belt. The Nomad, by contrast, was a stubborn, battered rock. It couldn't outrun the Inexorable, but Corbin, with his decades of experience flying rust buckets through contested space, knew its every groan and shudder. He pushed the ship in ways its designers never intended, using manual thruster bursts to skid across invisible gravitational tides and duck behind passing rogue ice chunks. Elias was no passenger. He was in the engine room, a cramped, hot space that smelled of ozone and his hands flying across a diagnostic panel. He was rerouting power, bypassing failing safety interlocks, and coaxing every last drop of performance from the Nomad's aging reactor core, all while Corbin barked commands from the cockpit. The quiet, meticulous technician was gone, replaced by a man running on pure adrenaline, his face slick with sweat, his eyes wide with the terrifying thrill of the fight. I've bypassed the primary coolant regulator. You'll get another 10% on the main drive, but she's running hot, Corbin. We can't keep this up for long. Don't need long, kid. Just need to get to the rocks. Just a few more million kilometers. On the bridge of the Inexorable, Rostova watched the display with cold, professional calm. She was not a monster, she was a surgeon, and this was a delicate, necessary excision. He's good. The hauler pilot. He's anticipating our trajectory. Recalibrate firing solution. I don't want to destroy them, I want to disable them. Target their primary drive manifold. Fire on my mark. The shot was perfect. A bolt of pure, white energy lanced across the void and struck the Nomad's stern. The ship convulsed violently, throwing Elias against a bulkhead. The roaring engine sputtered, whined, and died. Through the cockpit viewport, they could see the Inexorable gracefully turning, moving in for the kill. They were a sitting duck. The chase was over. A lifetime of running from his past, and now Corbin was out of sky. Elias looked at the tactical display, at the approaching black ship, and then at the glowing data core clutched in his hand. The truth. His truth. It couldn't end here. An idea, born of absolute desperation, bloomed in his mind. She hasn't finished us off yet. She wants the data intact. Which means we still have one card left to play. We still have the main reactor. And we still have the long-range comms antenna. He looked at Corbin, his eyes burning with a new, terrifying fire. We can't get the data to the belt. So we. Corbin stared at him, understanding dawning on his face, followed by dread. Corbin, you want to broadcast it? Kid, a system-wide data burst of that size would take every joule of power our reactor has left. It would drain the ship dry. We'd be a true ghost ship. No life support, no anything. Elias, I know. He thought of his parents, of their belief in an independence that had cost them their lives. He thought of the millions living under AuraGen's thumb, paying for the very air they breathed. My parents died because they believed in a future outside of AuraGen's control. I spent my whole life believing they were wrong, that the corporation's order was the only thing keeping us safe. But I was the one who was wrong. This control, this monopoly, it doesn't prevent chaos, it breeds it. It makes a miracle into a heresy. The data doesn't belong to the belt, Corbin. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to everyone. It's worth the risk. Corbin looked at the young technician, at the fire in his eyes. He saw the ghosts of his own past, of old comrades who had died fighting AuraGen in pointless skirmishes. He thought of a future where that fight might not be so pointless. He broke into a wide, grim smile. As Corbin used the last of the maneuvering thrusters to make the Nomad a twitching, unpredictable target, Elias raced to the comms console. He began the complex, desperate task of turning their entire ship into a pirate radio station, rigging the main reactor to bypass every system and pour its entire life's energy into the communications array. On the bridge of the inexorable, Rostova watched, confused. Rostova, what are they doing? I'm reading a massive power surge. Are they trying to restart their drive? No, Commander. The energy isn't flowing to the engines. It's all going to their comms antenna. It's building towards a critical overload. Their whole reactor is going to blow. An immense, silent wave of pure information erupted from the Nomad, an invisible tsunami carrying the genetic code of the lichen, the secret of free air. The lights on the Nomad flickered and died. The hum of its machinery ceased. The ship went dark, a dead husk adrift in the void. Rostova held her breath, waiting for the explosion that never came. Instead, her own comms officer turned to her, his face pale. Comms officer, Commander. I don't know how, but we're being flooded. Every open channel. Mars Central, Titan Dome, Europa Station, every ship and outpost in the belt, they're all receiving it. It's a data burst from the freighter. It's a complete methodology for oxygen synthesis from a native Martian extremophile. It's verified. Rostova stood frozen. Her mission to contain the secret had failed in the most spectacular way imaginable. To destroy the Nomad now would be a petty, pointless act of vengeance. It would make Elias Thorne a martyr and validate his heresy to the entire solar system. She watched the dark, silent ship for a long moment, then gave the quietest, most defeated order of her career. Rostova, cease fire. Set a course back to Mars. We have a new reality to report. Adrift in the silent, powerless cockpit of the Nomad, Elias and Corbin watched the sleek black ship turn and disappear. They were alive. And on the comms panel, running on the last dregs of emergency battery, they saw the solar system light up. Messages flying back and forth between colonies, scientific communities erupting in a frenzy of excitement, colonial governments calling emergency sessions. They had not started a war. They had started a conversation. A revolution. Elias looked out at the distant stars, no longer a company man, no longer a fugitive, but something new. He had set out to investigate a faulty sensor and had ended up changing the future. The years ahead would be chaotic, and humanity would have to learn to walk on its own 2 feet again.